How do you calculate standard deviation in Excel, you ask? In today's video, we will discover what standard deviation is and how its applications are integral to the world of finance. Then, we will discuss how to calculate standard deviation using 6 different Excel formulas. I'm Jacqueline from Jotform, and this time-saving tool is surprisingly easy to learn. So let's take a look. While you may know that Excel makes data storage and organization more manageable, you may not know about the formulas that can make that process even easier. All you need is to know which formula to use and how to use it. But first, let's talk a little bit more about standard deviation. Standard deviation is a statistic measuring the spread of a data set as it relates to the mean. To calculate it, you find the square root of the variance, aka the spread of numbers in a data set. Knowing the difference between a data point in relation to the data set's mean is useful when comparing various sets of data with the same mean, but a different range. For example, let's look at these two data sets. While the mean is the same for each, the second data set has a wider spread than the first. When the data points are further from the mean, like we see in the second data set, the standard deviation within the set is greater. But how does this apply in the real world? In finance, standard deviation is applied to the annual rate of return of an investment. When the standard deviation is high, there is a larger gap between each price and the mean, revealing a wider price range. A rapidly changing stock has a high standard deviation, but a reliable stock, like that of blue chip, has a low standard deviation. As you can see, standard deviation is an essential tool for strategizing investment and trading. Investment firms, analysts, advisors, and portfolio managers all utilize standard deviation to assess financial risk. And because the statistics are generally easy to grasp, standard deviation is effective when presenting to clients and investors. The only drawback is the time and energy it typically takes to calculate and display the information. This brings us back to Excel, as its functions provide a more efficient way to both determine and present standard deviation. First, we should understand the 6 standard deviation formulas in Excel. For a sample standard deviation, you would use the formulas in the first category: STDEV.S, STDEVA, and STDEV. For the standard deviation of an entire population, however, you would use the formulas in the second category: STDEV.P, STDEVPA, and STDEVP. The term population refers to multiple data sets being taken into consideration. In some cases, using the data sets of an entire population may be impractical. When that happens, you should study a sample from the population using the sample standard deviation formulas. Often, you can infer the standard deviation of the entire population from the sample alone. For our purposes, we will focus on sample standard deviation as it is the most common practice. As we just learned, the 3 formulas for sample standard deviation are STDEV.S, STDEVA, and STDEV. STDEV.S is used for numeric data and will not calculate text or logical values. STDEVA, however, will evaluate data that is a mix of numeric, text, and logical values. In STDEVA, text and false are shown as 0 and true is shown as 1. Finally, the STDEV formula works exactly like the STDEV.S formula, but is compatible with versions of Excel dating 2007 or older. To use the STDEV.S formula, your syntax should look like this. It is important to note that Number 1 is a mandatory argument in the formula because the first number represents the first element of the sample. In place of arguments separated by commas, you can apply a named range, single array, or a reference to an array when using this formula. On the other hand, number 2 is an optional argument in the formula. Number 2 can refer to a data point, a named range, a single array, or a reference to an array. As many as 254 arguments can be applied. Now, let's take what we've learned and apply it to an example. Taking a data set for a range of body weights from a sample population, we would take the numbers in column A, resulting in a formula like this. As a result, Excel will determine the standard deviation of the provided data in addition to the average. In this case, if the average is 150 pounds, the standard deviation is 2, suggesting that the majority of people in the sample group weighed in the range of 150 minus 2 pounds or 150 plus 2 pounds. Before we wrap up, I have some Excel pro tips to share with you. When entering a formula into a cell, look for it in Excel's formula bar. It should show up there automatically. Also, always be sure to include an equal sign when entering a formula into Excel. I hope these tips prove helpful as you begin to put your new knowledge of how to calculate standard deviation in Excel into practice. Let's take a moment to review what we learned today. What standard deviation is and what it's used for. How to use standard deviation in financial investment and trading. How Excel can efficiently calculate and display standard deviation, a useful tool when presenting to clients and investors. Which formulas to use to calculate standard deviation in Excel, as well as why and how to use them. Again, I'm Jacqueline from Jotform, and I hope you found our video helpful. See you all next time.